So in this video we're going to go ahead and check out everything that I can hopefully explain to you guys about how to best optimize your setup to play specifically Counter-Strike, but not necessarily limited to just Counter-Strike. Could also apply to a variety of first-person shooters. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at my gaming setup. I actually have two machines here. One's the MacBook, which I know is funny, but this is my actual serious setup over here on the right. This is, my gaming tower. It's a gaming monitor, my mouse pad, a weight to clip my mouse down, my other monitor that I sometimes use. The first thing I want to talk about is the actual desk itself, something that you kind of want to strive for. Most players actually prefer just a straight flat table. This is like a $55 IKEA table. It's fairly sturdy, it doesn't wobble the actual monitor, even if it is set up on a box like that. I highly recommend it. There probably are other alternatives for tables, but this is the one that I use. As it relates to chairs, it's really important that you get something that you're comfortable sitting in, of course. But the other thing that I want to mention that is sometimes overlooked is you want to have an armrest that when you're mousing, your elbow or arm are not actually resting on it, so it'll make you a lot more consistent as a player. Also, if you want to be really, really serious and you're going to go to LAN tournaments and stuff like that, they may not have that particular chair, and suddenly, because your arm's not resting on the actual armrest, you're going to play a lot differently and possibly a lot worse. When it comes to lighting in a room, which is something that is often overlooked, so I'm going to pan out here on my room, a couple of things I want to mention. So you don't want to play like in a pitch black room, where the monitor's on and it's pitch black and you've closed the door and you're doing this and you have this monitor that's basically searing at you in the eyes. I like to have a bit of ambient light, and the reason for that is not right away, but as you play Counter-Strike for hours and hours and hours at a time, what tends to happen is your eyes will get really sore if you're doing that. Now, not right away. Some people have started doing it and they haven't really had any eye problems, but sometimes years later their eyes are really, really sore. So the other thing that you want to avoid is like direct sunlight. I can't recommend blackout blinds enough. They solve basically most of the lighting issues that you could possibly have. And they're usually not too expensive. I mean, if you go crazy on the style, of course you can spend like a lot of money on blinds. But simple blackout blinds that you can buy at IKEA or whatever I have here will do the trick. Next thing I want to talk about is the actual monitor height. So I like to have the monitor at about eye level, and the reason for that is simply because I don't want to hurt my neck over time. I used to play very low the monitor. I used to crane my neck, sort of like right over the monitor. I'd be like staring down at it. But over the years, it's kind of hurt my neck. And also, if you are a leaner in Counter-Strike, those are the players who lean in. It definitely is a lot easier on your body if you raise the monitor and lean in that way. Whenever you're building your machine, or if you just buy something that you can buy, at the store, it's really important that you get a computer that has a lot of CPU in it, rather a modern day CPU. You can look at benchmarks if you just Google like CPU benchmarks. And the reason for that is, especially as it relates to Counter-Strike, is that CSGO is what we would like to term as CPU bottlenecked. Meaning if I had a couple computers, one had a modern day i5, i7, with sort of an older kind of video card, maybe today you'd spend $150 on that, versus another computer that had like a $400 video card with like a Core 2 on it, which is 5 or 10 years old or something like that. For sure, the modern day i5 or i7 computer would outperform in terms of frames per second relating to Counter-Strike. So that's why you want to go heavy on the CPU when you're building a CS computer. When it comes to gaming mice, it's going to be really hard for me to tell you which mouse is going to be the one for you. I use a SteelSeries Rival, and a lot of pros use it as well, but keep in mind that a lot of different players use a lot of different mice, so this might not be the be-all, end-all for everybody, and I can tell you that it probably isn't. I'm personally, I still want to try other mice, I just haven't gotten around to buying them, and buying mice can be a little pricey. They run about $40 to $80 depending on the mouse. Sometimes they're less, but usually that's not the case. So I really encourage you to buy a couple mice, buy a small one, buy a big one, look at what the pros are using, and try to experiment to see what you're most comfortable with. Something that I really like in this mouse specifically is the grip on the side. It's kind of hard to make out here, but there's sort of a rubberized side, and when it comes to lifting your mouse, that makes it a lot easier. And that's why I like the mouse. But in the end, the most important thing is that you just choose a mouse that you're comfortable with. Up next is the mouse pad. So the first thing you'll notice about this mouse pad is it's pretty big. You know, a lot of people imagine their personal computers or mouse pads that their parents use, and it's about a quarter the size. But in Counter-Strike, we generally play at low sensitivities, and so whenever we're dodging flashbangs and stuff like that, we're going to be using up most of this mouse pad. Sometimes we go right off the mouse pad entirely. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. The other thing that I want to mention is there are basically two categories of mouse pads. One is the cloth, which is what I have here, which is basically, a very soft mouse pad. This is what I've been playing on for years. The other is what I would term the hard pad, or a hard surface, depending on how you want to say it. And I've not personally liked those, however there are some players definitely out there who still use those to this day. Some players actually use both in some weird way, where they have a cloth on the bottom and they take a hard surface and put it over top. Many different players are going to prefer different keyboards. Some players prefer keyboards that have very sensitive keys. Some prefer the deeper kind of clicky ones, like the really old school circa 1997 IBM keyboards. I really don't care about any of that. The most important thing for me is that I use a micro-sized keyboard. What is that? So that's just a keyboard that doesn't have a numpad here that you would put numbers into. And the reason why that's important is whenever you're mousing to the left and you get into that scenario where you need just a little more mouse space, you're not going to bang up against your keyboard. And that's a very small thing, but it can help you out quite a bit. Thanks so much for watching. I haven't made YouTube videos for years, but hopefully I can get back into it and leave a comment, etc. I'll see what I can improve in the next one.